Some mountains test climbers with altitude. Some mountains test them with cold. And then there is a different category entirely. Mountains that test the laws of geometry. Walls so sheer, so overhanging, so relentlessly vertical that the question is not simply how a climber reaches the top, but how the rock holds together at all. These 5 mountains span 5 corners of the world, from the fjords of Norway to the glaciers of Pakistan. None of them is the highest, but each of them presents a wall that has redefined what vertical means and what it costs to find out. The Troll Wall, Trollveggen in Norwegian, rises from the Romsdalen Valley in western Norway and announces itself without warning. The Rauma Railway from Åndalsnes runs directly into the valley, and as the train moves through the gorge, the wall simply fills the sky. Europe's tallest vertical rock face, 1,100 meters from the valley floor to the summit rim, with the wall overhanging its own base by nearly 50 meters at the steepest point. A climber standing at the base is not standing beneath a cliff, they're standing beneath an overhang. The rock is ancient gneiss, fractured, permanently damp from the Atlantic weather system that presses in from the coast, and reshaped every winter by freeze-thaw cycles that prise open the stone. The wall is north-facing, which means it catches almost no direct sunlight, even at the height of summer, and ice persists in the cracks well into July. Shorter free routes on the wall can be completed in 1 to 2 days. The longer aid routes, lines that push through the steepest and most overhanging sections, demand 8 to 21 days on the face, with climbers sleeping on portal edges suspended against the overhang, exposed to whatever weather the Atlantic delivers. The summit rim is lined with a series of dramatic rock pinnacles, spires of gneiss shaped over millennia into the forms of petrified trolls, the Norse giants of legend, turned to stone by the dawn light. The Romsdalen Valley below holds one of Norway's finest Atlantic salmon rivers. Above the tree line, golden eagles and ptarmigan patrol the ridgelines above the wall. From Norway, the journey moves south into the heart of the Swiss Alps, to the most famous wall on this list, and arguably the most famous wall in the history of mountaineering. The Eiger's north face, the Nordwand, rises 1,800 meters above the resort valleys of Grindelwald and Kleine Scheidegg in the Bernese Alps, the largest north face in the Alps. The German-speaking climbing world gave it a second name early on, the Mordwand, the murder wall, a pun on Nordwand that proved harder to shake than anyone expected. The face is made of rotten limestone, a rock that disintegrates in warm conditions, sheds constant rockfall, and pours meltwater down the wall in rivers when temperatures rise. Serious ascents happen in winter or early autumn, when frozen conditions bond the crumbling surface into something that holds. The standard Heckmare route covers 4,000 meters of climbing distance over only 1,800 meters of vertical height, constantly forced sideways by the concave bowl of the face, which captures and amplifies storms, dropping temperatures to minus 40 degrees Celsius inside the bowl, while conditions remain moderate a few kilometers away. Most teams take 1 to 3 days on the wall. The fastest recorded ascent by Swiss climber Uli Steck in 2015 took 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 50 seconds. At 2,866 meters inside the mountain, the Jungfrau Railway passes through a tunnel with a window carved directly into the north face, an emergency exit used by climbers in deteriorating weather. The chamois and ibex that move freely across the broader Bernese Alps avoid the Nordwand entirely. Across the Atlantic and deep into the southern hemisphere, Fitzroy rises from the Argentine-Chilean border at the northern edge of the southern Patagonian ice field, the world's second largest contiguous extrapolar ice field. The mountain is 3,405 meters above sea level, and in the Tehuelche language, it carries its original name, Cerro Chaltén, the smoking mountain named for the clouds that almost permanently shroud its granite spires. Argentine explorer Francisco Moreno gave it its European name in 1877 in honor of Robert Fitzroy, captain of HMS Beagle. The granite of Fitzroy is technically comparable to Yosemite's El Capitan. The weather surrounding it is not comparable to anything. Patagonia sits directly in the path of the westerly wind belt that makes Cape Horn one of the most feared stretches of ocean on Earth. Storm systems arrive without a forecast, change conditions in minutes, and can render a climbable face impassable within the hour. 4 seasons can pass in a single day. Even within the prime climbing window of November to February, teams regularly wait 10 to 14 days in the village of El Chalten for a weather window long enough to attempt the summit. The standard Franco-Argentine route involves 600 meters of technical climbing at grade 6, a full expedition of 4 to 5 days from El Chalten, with the summit day alone running around 12 hours of continuous climbing before the descent begins. On the lower slopes, Lenga beech forests shelter Andean condors, guanacos, and pumas. Above the tree line, the rock takes everything. Nothing survives except the wind and the stone it carves. Here is an odd fact about the next mountain. It holds the world's record for the greatest purely vertical drop. Its cliff that drops 1,250 meters in a straight line, overhanging, not merely steep. But the final mountain on this list presents a wall that is even taller, 1,340 meters tall. And yet, it does not hold the record. The reason is a matter of geometry, and it will become clear at the end. Mount Thor sits on Baffin Island in the Canadian territory of Nunavut, inside Ayuyutuk National Park, a name meaning the land that never melts in Inuktitut. The approach takes 3 to 5 days on foot, through Akshayuk Pass, deep inside the Baffin Mountains of the Arctic Cordillera. What waits at the end of that walk is a wall that the eye struggles to process. Thor stands 1,675 meters above sea level, but the summit elevation is not the point. Its west face drops 1,250 meters of bare, unbroken granite without a single ledge. The Eiffel Tower is 324 meters. Stack it 4 times. The top of Thor's west face is still not reached. And the wall does not go straight down. It leans outward. The cliff overhangs at an average angle of 105 degrees, 15 degrees past vertical, meaning a stone released from the summit lip falls outward before it falls. This is not a wall climbed in a day or even a week. The west face demands expeditions of 18 to 33 days on the wall alone. The first successful ascent in 1985 took the team 33 days after leaving their fixed lines, with provisions nearly exhausted by the time they reached the summit. The climbing season runs from July to August only. Polar bears and Arctic foxes move through the valleys below. Above the snowline, peregrine falcons nest on the granite ledges, among the only living things that make a home on the face itself. The final mountain answers the question raised in the previous section. Great Trango Tower stands in Pakistan's Karakoram Range at 6,286 meters, reached after a flight to Skardu, a drive to the village of Ascole at the edge of the last settlement before the mountains, and an 8-day walk along the Baltoro Glacier through a corridor that passes beneath K2, Broad Peak, and the Gasherbrums. The east face of Great Trango drops 1,340 meters in a nearly vertical wall, the largest nearly vertical drop on Earth by altitude, and technically taller than Thor's west face by 90 meters. But it does not hold the record for the greatest purely vertical drop. Thor overhangs at 105 degrees. Trango's east face is nearly vertical, but it does not overhang. That single geometric distinction separates the two records. What Trango holds instead is scale, altitude, and a remoteness so absolute that routes on the east face involve over 2,200 meters of technical climbing at altitudes where oxygen deprivation compounds every decision. Ascents of the east face take around 27 to 28 days on the wall alone before the descent begins. The granite is from the Baltoro batholith, geologically solid, comparable to Yosemite in quality, but combined with altitude and Karakoram weather in a way that creates conditions found nowhere else on the planet. Snow leopards move through the lower valleys of the Karakoram. Above the glacier, the lammergeier, the bearded vulture, with a wingspan reaching 2.8 meters, circles the thermals above the walls, entirely untroubled by the altitude or the scale of what lies beneath it.